Hey my duck YouTube, welcome back to a new video with Rams fan YT. In today's video we're coming back to the history of your club on a new day of Monday. I've now changed my schedules around. We were doing Fridays and Mondays as my videos. So, sorry mama. The area around Swansea traditionally had been a rugby area. And despite previous attempts by a football club named Swansea Villa, there were no notable football clubs until the establishment of Swansea Town AFC in the summer of 1912. Following the lead of many other South Wales sides, the club joined the second division of the Southern League for the following season. J.W. Thorpe was the club's first chairman. A site owned by Swansea Gaslight Company called Vetch Field, due to the vegetables that grew there, was rented to be the club's ground. The club's first professional match was a 1-1 draw at the Vetch Field against Cardiff City on the 7th of September 1912. During that season, the Welsh Cup was won for the first time, and the Swans beat reigning English champions Blackburn Rovers 1-0 in the first round of the 1914-15 FA Cup. Swansea's goal coming from Ben Bainham. Following the First World War, the Southern League dropped its second division, and with many clubs dropping out due to financial difficulties. The Swans were placed in the first division, and after 4 seasons in the Southern League, Swansea Town became founding members of the new third division of the Football League in 1920, and then the Division 3 South the following season. After 5 seasons in the Division 3 South and a few failed bids for promotion, the Swans reached the second division for the first time in 1925, beating Exeter City 2-1 at home on the final day of the season to win the division. The side had remained unbeaten at home in the league all season, something the next promotion team would emulate over 20 years later. The following season, the Swans reached the semi-finals of the FA Cup for the first time, beating Exeter City, Watford, Blackpool, Stoke City, Millwall and Arsenal, before losing 3-0 to eventual cup winners Bolton Wanderers at White Hart Lane. The Swans recorded their highest average attendance during the season of 16,118 for pre-war league games. During the 1926-27 season, they beat Real Madrid 3-0 on tour. During the 1931-32 season, they finished first in the league and won the Welsh Cup after beating Wrexham 2-0 after a replay. Noting this is away. After just 1 season back from wartime football, the Swans finished 21st in the second division, and first returned to the Division 3 South for the first time since 1925. The following season was one of consolidation. However, in 1948-49, the Swans stormed their way to winning the division for the second time. Only 1 point was dropped at home all season, as the feat of the 1925 promotion side was emulated, with the side finishing a whole 7 points ahead of second-placed Reading. Billy McCandless was the manager who led the side to promotion. In doing so, he completed a rare hat-trick of winning the third division South title with all 3 South Wales clubs, and without losing a home game with Swansea or Cardiff. Following promotion, the Swans had another 15 years of second division football to look forward to. However, despite what successive managers and chairmen were to say, Swansea Town only once during that time looked like they would genuinely challenge for promotion. That came in the 1955-56 season, when a side containing the likes of Ivor Allchurch, Terry Medwin, Harry Griffiths and Tom Killy led the table early in the season, before an injury to Killy, referred to as the linchpin of the side, in mid-November led to a decline in form. He was never adequately replaced, but despite this, and the sale of some of the club's best players, the side remained in contention for promotion until the beginning of April. Following a 6-1 win over second-place Leicester City at the Vetch Field at the end of March, the side was just 2 points behind second-placed Liverpool with a game in hand. Subsequent results were not as encouraging, and they eventually slipped away to finish 10th. In 1964, the Swans reached a second FA Cup semi-final, beating Barrow, Sheffield United and Stoke City en route to a famous sixth-round victory at Anfield. Few gave the Swans, struggling for their lives at the bottom of Division 2, any chance of causing an upset against the league leaders. But the Swans were 2-0 up at half-time thanks to Jimmy McLaughlin and Eddie Thomas. Liverpool turned up the pressure in the second half, pulling a goal back before being awarded a penalty 9 minutes from time. Ronnie Moran had established an excellent record as a penalty taker, but he failed to beat the excellent Noel Dwyer on this occasion. Fellow second division side Preston North End awaited in the semi-final at Villa Park. But despite taking the lead through McLaughlin again, the Swans were to be denied by a second half penalty and a wonder goal from nearly 40 yards. After flirting with relegation on a few occasions during the previous seasons, the Swans' luck finally ran out a season later in 1965, and they were back in the third division. Following relegation, Trevor Morris, who had been manager since 1958, was sacked, and Glyn Davis, a former Swansea player, was appointed in his place. Davis re-signed for 36-year-old Ivor Allchurch from Cardiff City, but despite winning the Welsh Cup, the season saw some of the club's heaviest defeats, and the manager only lasted the season. Relegation to Division 4 followed in 1967, and Ivor Allchurch retired. The 1967-68 season saw the record attendance of 32,796 at the Vetch Field for an FA Cup fourth-round match against Arsenal. A tragedy struck the club on the 20th of January 1969, when players Roy Evans and Brian Purcell were killed in a car crash on the way to a game. In 1969, the club name was changed to Swansea City, and Roy Bentley's side celebrated by securing promotion back to the third division. A record run of 19 matches unbeaten provided the foundations for a promotion challenge in 1971-72, but an awful run towards the end of the season resulted in a mid-table finish. A poor start the following season, combined with falling attendances, saw Bentley resign, and he was replaced by Harry Gregg. Gregg failed to stop the rot, and the club was back in the fourth division for the 1973-74 season. And I think it's getting a bit dark, isn't it? Hopefully that's better for you. Record low of just 1,358 fans watched the Swans against Northampton Town. And the following season, the Swans were forced to apply for re-election to the Football League after a last-day defeat at Rochdale converted them to a 21st place. The application was a success, although by now former player Harry Griffiths was replaced by Gregg as manager. He replaced Gregg as manager. Malcolm Struwell also took over as chairman, having previously been on the board, and promised to return to former glories, stating that he would not sell the club's best young talent as previous boards had once done. Despite promising performances during the first half of the 1977-78 season, Harry Griffiths resigned as Swansea City's manager in February 1978, doubting his own ability to take the club any further. The new manager was former Liverpool, Cardiff City and Wales striker John Toshack. On the 1st of March 1978, at 28 years old, Toshack became the youngest manager in the Football League, with Griffiths as his assistant. Thus began a remarkable climb for the fourth division to the top of the entire league. Despite relinquishing his role as manager before the end of the season, this was Griffiths' team, and the promotion from the fourth division was largely his doing. During this season, the Swans' record league win was achieved, which was an 8-0 against Hartlepool United. Before promotion was secured, however, Harry Griffiths died of a heart attack on the 25th of April 1978, before the home game against Scunthorpe United. A further promotion was achieved the next season, and the club returned to the second division after an absence of 14 years, with Toshack himself coming off the bench to score the winning goal against Chesterfield and thus secure promotion. After a season of consolidation, Swansea City again challenged for promotion and travelled to Preston North End on the 2nd of May 1981, in the knowledge that victory would ensure them a place in the First Division for the first time in the club's history. A 3-1 win guaranteed a third promotion in 4 seasons, and Swansea City joined the footballing elite. The goal scorers on that historic day at Deepdale were Tommy Craig, Leighton James and Jeremy Charles. The 4-year rise from basement to top division is a record in English football, held jointly with Wimbledon FC. Coincidentally, the Swansea declined started the same year as Wimbledon rise. Swansea also won the Welsh Cup that season, qualifying for Europe for the first time since the 1965-66 season. The 1981-82 season began as implausibly as recent history had suggested it might. The fixture computer handed Swansea's upstarts a Thursday home game against Leeds United, which Swansea promptly won at 5-1 with a hat-trick by debutant Bob Latchford. Swansea had swept from the basement division to the top of the entire Football League in barely 3 years. Victories over footballing royalty such as Liverpool, Manchester United, Arsenal and Tottenham Hotspur followed as the club topped the league on several further occasions. However, injuries to key players took their toll, and the lack of depth in the squad meant the season ended in 6th place finish. Furthermore, a fateful combination of poor form, misfortune in the transfer market and financial problems led to a slump which was as quick and spectacular as had been the rise to consecutive relegations followed, and Toshack was sacked. By 1985, the club was battling for its very survival on 2 fronts. While its creditors lined up a High Court hearing with the aim of liquidating the club, Swansea City had come to rely on a combination of old stagers and young professionals. Wound up by court order in December 1985, Swansea City was saved by local businessman Doug Sharp, who took over the running of the club. Although the change of ownership was not enough to prevent relegation to the 4th Division in 1986. 8 years on from the first promotion under Toshack, the club was back where it started. Swansea won promotion from the 4th Division in 1988, beating Rotherham United and Torquay United over 2 legs in the inaugural playoffs. They remained in the league's 3rd tier for the next 8 seasons, the longest period of stability the club had seen since the 1940s. Doug Sharp may have kept the purse strings tight, but under Terry Yorath and then Frank Burrows, the club managed to stay in the 2nd Division, reaching the playoff semi-finals in 1993 and make their first Wembley appearance a year later. Burrows guided the Swans to within 118 minutes of Wembley in 1993. A run of 5 wins in the last 6 league matches, all at home, secured a playoff place. And with 5 minutes remaining in the first leg of the semi-final against West Bromwich Albion, the Swans were 2-0 up. Andy McFarlane scored an own goal when the ball rebounded off a crossbar and then into the net off his knee to give West Brom a lifeline. And 2 early goals in the second leg gave the Baggies the advantage, until midfielder Mickey Mellon was sent off. Burrows threw on at Colin West. However, within minutes of coming on, the former West Brom striker was sent off and ended any hopes of a Wembley final. Although the league campaign for the following season did not live up to the previous one, mainly due to the sale of key players, Burrows guided the Swans to Wembley for the first time in their history for the final of the Autoglass Trophy. Wins over Plymouth Argyle and Exeter City in the group stage, followed by triumphs over Exeter again, Port Vale, Leyton Orient and Wycombe Wanderers over 2 legs, saw the Swans play Huddersfield Town in a final that finished 1-1. Chairman Doug Sharp brought back the famous hat, and the Swans went on to win 3-1 on penalties. The following season failed to live up to expectations, although the club again reached the semi-finals of the Auto Windscreen Shield, eventually going out to Birmingham City, and an eventful FA Cup run saw them win at Middlesbrough in a 3rd round replay, before going out to Newcastle United at St James's Park. The 1995-96 season ended with relegation back to the 3rd Division after 8 years. The Swans were doing fine around Christmas time, but a complete collapse in the second half of the season, including 7-0 FA Cup defeat at 3rd Division Fulham, 4-0 and 5-1 defeats at Blackpool and Oxford United respectively. Relegation was inevitable, despite the arrival of Jan Molby. Relegation in 1996 was accompanied by an unfortunate statistic. Never before had the club been managed by 4 men in the same season. Most embarrassing was the appointment of Kevin Koulis as manager by a consortium wishing to buy the club. Koulis, whose previous experience was with non-league Midlands club Cradley Town youth team, was certainly not the big-name manager promised by the new owners. Alarmed at developments at the club, outgoing chairman Doug Sharp invoked a contractual clause to cancel the deal and resume control himself. Koulis was promptly sacked after just 6 days. During his short-lived reign, his evident lack of ability led to senior players Christian Edwards and Dave Penny ejecting Koulis from the dressing room during half-time and giving the team talk for themselves in a 4-0 defeat to Blackpool, which proved to be his second and last game in charge. Koulis' successor was the Dane Jan Molby, a former Liverpool player taking his first steps in management. His appointment inevitably prompted comparison with the Toshack era, which began nearly 20 years earlier. Despite relegation in 1996, the club reached the final of the 1997 Third Division promotion playoffs, that is, but lost to Northampton Town, whose goal came from a retaken free kick by John Frayne in the final minute. Molby was sacked just weeks into the following season, with Swansea struggling near the foot of the league. After the initial optimism, the Liverpool connection had not caused history to repeat itself. Alan Cork was appointed as manager, but was dismissed after leading the club to its lowest league finish for 23 years. John Hollins was appointed, and things soon started to improve. In 1999, the club reached the promotion playoffs, only to lose in extra time at Scunthorpe United. The season was also notable for a third-round FA Cup victory over Premiership opponents West Ham United, whose team included Frank Lampard, Joe Cole, Rio Ferdinand and John Hartson. Swansea thus became the first bottom division team to defeat a Premiership club in the FA Cup since the reorganisation of the league structure in 1992. The club was promoted in 2000 as Division 3 champions, following a nail-biting championship decider on the final day of the season against second place Rotherham United. Hollins' side certainly proved to be effective and functional rather than pretty, seemingly winning 1-0 every week on the way to the title. The side conceded just 32 goals during the 1999-2000 season, largely due to the form of excellent centre-back pairing Jason Smith and Matthew Bound, as well as keeper Roger Freeston. During the season, the side set a record of 9 consecutive league victories, and during the same period, 7 consecutive clean sheets. Striker Walter Boyd also set an unwanted record of being the fastest substitute ever sent off, when he was red-carded for striking a Darlington player seconds after being brought on, and before the play had resumed, therefore being officially recorded as 0 seconds. Promotion was secured courtesy of a 3-0 win over Exeter City at a packed Vetch Field. However, the following week's 1-1 draw at Rotherham United, which confirmed Swansea as Division 3 champions, was overshadowed by the death of supporter Terry Coles, who was trampled to death by a police horse in Narrow Millmoor Lane before the game. Despite significant optimism on the terraces, it was clear that the team was not strong enough to survive in the high division, and relegation occurred in May 2001, just 12 months after promotion. Hollins had failed to strengthen the side at all during the summer, and despite a decent start, a 5-1 defeat at big spending Reading in September led to a disastrous slide down the table, and the side won just 8 games all season, and was saved from bottom spot only by Oxford United being even worse. Hollins certainly was not helped by lack of investment from the board and injury to key players, but the fans' patience wore thin as his continual insistence that the squad was good enough to survive grew more comical by the week. Relegation seemed certain following a 5-3 defeat at fellow strugglers Luton Town, where Giovanni Savarese scored a hat-trick. However, Hollins maintained that the side could stay up even when 18 points were needed from the final 6 matches, and for 2 other teams to pick up no more points. In July 2001, following relegation back to 3rd Division, the club was sold to managing director Mike Lewis for £1. Lewis subsequently sold on his stake to a consortium of Australian businessmen behind the Brisbane Lions, an Australian rules football team that is based in Brisbane. Football team fronted by Tony Petty. 7 players were sacked and 8 others saw their contracts terminated. Angering supporters and sanctions were threatened by the Football League, with a rival consortium headed by ex-player Mel Nurse seeking to buy out the new owners. During this period, Hollins was sacked after a poor start to the season, and Colin Addison took over as manager. The turmoil led to the creation of the Swansea City Supporters Trust, which sought to save the club and ultimately guarantee supporter representation on the club's board. The Petty Group sold its stake in January 2002, after a bitter standoff with the Nurse Consortium, which was supported by the majority of the club's fans. Jim Moore and Mel Griffin, previously rescuers of Hull City FC, stepped into the breach and persuaded Petty to sell to them, as he had promised to bankrupt the club and make it extinct rather than sell it to Nurse. From there, Moore became chairman for 3 weeks, giving the Mel Nurse Consortium time to organise its finances. Having successfully reorganised the finances of Hull City, both Moore and Griffith were believers in clubs belonging in the hands of local people, and so believing Nurse's group were best for the Swans, subsequently passed the club onto Nurse's Consortium for the fee of £1. Despite problems off the pitch, Addison's side had managed a mid-table position, but lack of funds led to his dismissal in debutants Boston United had put the Swans on the bottom of the Football League for the first time in its 91-year history. He was replaced by Brian Flynn, and Swansea City avoided relegation to the Football Conference on the last day of the season, at the expense of Exeter City, a club then vice-chaired by Mike Lewis. Brian Flynn's side finished the 2003-04 season 10th and reached the 5th round of the FA Cup for the first time in 24 years, eventually losing 2-1 at Tranmere Rovers. Flynn was dismissed and replaced by Kenny Jackett. Jackett lost his first 6 matches in charge, ending any hope of a playoff place. The following season, Jackett recruited a number of defensive players and set a record of 7 consecutive home clean sheets, all victories. The Swans' last season at the Vetch Field saw the club win promotion on the last day of the season, clinching a 3rd place finish with a 1-0 away win to Bury. Their last league game at their old ground was a 1-0 win over Shrewsbury Town, with the last game of any sort being a 2-1 win against Wrexham in the final of the 2005 FAW Premier Cup. The club moved to the new Liberty Stadium during the summer of 2005. The first competitive game was a 1-0 victory against Tranmere Rovers. In August 2005, in their first season back in League One, Swansea, after beating Brentford in the semi-finals, lost on penalties to Barnsley in the final at the Millennium Stadium in Cardiff. That same season, Swansea won the Football League trophy for the first time since 1994, and the FAW Premier Cup for a 2nd successive year. In the following season, Jackett resigned as manager in mid-season to be replaced by Roberto Martinez. Martinez's arrival saw an improvement in form, but Swansea missed out on the playoffs again. The following season, an 18-game unbeaten run helped them to the League One title. The club amassed a total of 92 points over the course of the season, the highest ever by a Welsh club in the Football League. 5 Swansea players were in the PFA Team of the Year, including the division's 29-goal top scorer Jason Scotland. That same season, Swansea lost on penalties to Milton Keynes Dons in the final of Football League trophy. Upon returning to the 2nd tier of English football after 24 years, Swansea City finished the 2008-09 season in 8th place and missing out on the playoffs the following season by a single point. After impressive 63 wins in 126 games for Swansea City, Martinez left for Wigan Athletic on the 15th of June 2009, with his tenure returning just 26 losses in that time. He was replaced by Portuguese Paulo Sousa, who adopted a more defensive style of play, whilst also retaining the slick and effective continental game of tiki-taka football that was installed by his immediate predecessor. Sousa subsequently left Swansea to take charge at Leicester City on the 5th of July 2010, lasting just 1 year and 13 days in South Wales. However, just before the departure of Sousa, on the 15th of May 2010, Swansea player Bazian Idrizaj tragically suffered a heart attack in his native Austria while on international duty. The club retired the number 40 in his memory, and the players wore shirts dedicated to Idrizaj after their victory in the playoff final. Northern Irishman Brendan Rodgers took charge for the 2010-11 season. He guided the club to a third-place finish and qualification for the Championship playoffs, with a new manager again keeping the continental style of play introduced by Martinez. After beating Nottingham Forest 3-1 on aggregate in the semi-final, they defeated Reading 4-2 in the final at Wembley Stadium, with Scott Sinclair scoring a hat-trick. By being promoted to the Premier League for the 2011-12 season, Swansea became the first Welsh team to play in the division since its formation in 1992. Swansea signed Danny Graham from Watford for a then record fee of £3.5 million. They defeated Arsenal, Liverpool and Manchester City, the eventual champions, at home during the season. Swansea finished their debut at Premier League season in 11th, but at the end of the season, Brendan Rodgers left to manage Liverpool. He was replaced by Michael Laudrup for the 2012-13 Premier League season, which was the club's centenary season. Laudrup's first league game ended in a 5-0 victory over Queen's Park Rangers away at Loftus Road. Swansea then beat West Ham United 3-0 at the Liberty Stadium, with Mitchell scoring his third goal in 2 games. This saw Swansea top of the Premier League. It was the first time since October 1981 the team had been at the summit of the top tier. On the 15th of October 2012, the club announced a profit of £14.2 million after their first season in the Premier League. On the 1st of December, Swansea picked up a 2-0 away win against Arsenal, with Mitchell scoring twice during the last minutes of the game, in Swansea's first win at Arsenal in 3 decades. Mitchell ended the season as the club's top scorer in all competitions with 22 goals. On the 24th of February 2013, Swansea beat Bradford City 5-0 in the League Cup final, en route to the biggest win in the final of the competition. This triumph in a record victory was Swansea's first major piece of silverware and qualified them for the 2013-14 UEFA Europa League. Swansea finished the season in 9th place in the Premier League, improving upon the league standing achieved in the previous season. On the 11th of July, Swansea paid a club a record transfer fee of £12 million to secure the signing of striker Wilfred Bony from Vitesse Arnhem. Bony was the leading goal scorer in the 2012-13 Eredivisie with 31 goals and was named Dutch Player of the Year. Swansea enjoyed initial success in Europe, beating Spanish side Valencia 3-0 at the Mestalla Stadium in September 2013. On the 3rd of November 2013, Swansea lost the first Welsh derby in the Premier League to Cardiff City following a 1-0 defeat. In February 2014, Laudrup was dismissed from the club after a poor run of form. Defender Gary Monk, a Swansea player since 2004, was named as his replacement. In Monk's first game in charge, Swansea beat Cardiff 3-0 at the Liberty Stadium on the 8th of February 2014. Despite holding Rafael Benitez's Napoli to a 0-0 draw in the first leg of the Europa League round of 32, Swansea exited the competition after losing 3-1 in the second leg at the Stadio San Paolo on the 27th of February 2014. In January 2015, Wilfred Bony was sold to Manchester City for a record sale of £25 million, with add-ons reportedly leading to £28 million. This deal eclipsed the record fee received from Liverpool for Joe Allen at £15 million. At the time of the sale, Bony was the club's top scorer with 34 goals in all competitions, and the Premier League's top scorer for the 2014 calendar year with 20 goals. Swansea City finished 8th in the Premier League at the end of the 2014-15 season with 56 points, their highest position and points haul for a Premier League season, and second highest finish in the top flight of all time. During the season, they produced league doubles over Arsenal and Manchester United, becoming only the third team in the Premier League history to achieve that feat. On the 9th of December 2015, manager Gary Monk was sacked after one win in 11 matches. The club, after a period with Alan Curtis as caretaker manager for the third time, chose the Italian former Udinese Calcio head coach, Francesco Guidiolin. During the 2016-17 pre-season, Swansea City came under new ownership by an American consortium led by Jason Levine and Stephen Kaplan, who brought a controlling interest in the club in July 2016. Chairman Hugh Jenkins remained at the club. On the 3rd of October 2016, Guidolin was sacked and replaced by American coach Bob Bradley. The selection as Bradley marked the first time a Premier League club had ever hired an American manager. Bradley, I don't know why I'm saying Bradley. Bradley himself was sacked after just 85 days in charge. He won only 2 of his 11 games, conceded 29 goals, and left with a win percentage of just 18.1%. On the 3rd of January 2017, Bayern Munich assistant manager Paul Clement agreed to take charge of the team, replacing Bradley. Following Clement's arrival, Nigel Gibbs and Claude Makélélé were appointed his assistant coaches, and Carl Halaby was appointed head of physical performance. During the remainder of the 2016-17 season, Clement led Swansea to win 26 points from 18 games, securing the survival on the 14th of May. Only 3 prior teams had climbed from the bottom of the table at Christmas to escape relegation, and only 1 prior team was able to escape relegation while having 3 managers during the season. On the 6th of November 2017, assistant coach Claude Makélélé left the club to join Belgian side Eupen. He was replaced by long-term Swansea player Leon Britton. A poor start of the first half of the 2017-18 season saw Swansea sitting at bottom of the table after 18 league games, which led to Clement being sacked on the 20th of December 2017, leaving the club at 4 points adrift of safety. Towards the end of his tenure, Clement was criticised by a section of Swansea supporters for playing boring and negative football, questioning his tactical decisions, with the Swans being the lowest scorers in the Premier League at the time of his sacking. He was replaced by Portuguese manager Carlos Carvalhal. Despite consecutive league home wins against Liverpool 1-0, Arsenal 3-1, and Burnley 1-0, and West Ham 4-1, Swansea were winless in their last 9 league games, losing 5 under Carvalhal, leaving them in 18th place on the final day of the season. During the season, Chairman Hugh Jenkins and the club's American owners were criticised by Swansea fans and pundits for poor transfer windows and the firing of managers. Alan Shearer blamed the Swansea board for moving away from the style of play found under previous managers Brendan Rodgers and Roberto Martinez. Swansea City were relegated on the 13th of May 2018, following a 2-1 defeat to already relegated Stoke City. On the 11th of June 2018, Graham Potter was announced as the club's new manager, replacing Carvalhal. On the 2nd of February 2019, Hugh Jenkins resigned as chairman amid increasing criticism over the club's sale to the American consortium in 2016 and the club's subsequent relegation from the Premier League. He was replaced with Trevor Birch. The first season back in the Championship produced a 10th place finish, including a quarter-final appearance in the FA Cup. However, Potter left at the end of the season to manage Premier League club Brighton. He was succeeded by former England under-17 manager Steve Cooper, with Mike Marsh joining him as his assistant. In September 2019, Cooper was named EFL Championship Manager of the Month, with Swansea City sitting top of the table after an unbeaten first month. This was Swansea's best start to a season in 41 years. On the final day of the season, Swansea beat Reading 4-1 to finish 6th, moving into the playoffs ahead of Nottingham Forest on goal difference. but were later defeated by Brentford in the semi-final second leg. At the end of the 2020-21 season, Swansea finished fourth in the league and secured a playoff place for a second consecutive season. Swansea progressed to the 2021 EFL Championship playoff final after defeating Barnsley 2-1 in aggregate, but lost to Brentford at Wembley Stadium. For the 2021-22 season, the club unveiled a modernised version of the original crest, which is not in my thumbnail, unfortunately, because I couldn't find a suitable version. For the club, to mark the 40th anniversary of the Swans' first promotion to the top flight in 1981. After Steve Cooper left the club, Russell Martin became head coach. Martin spoke with former Swansea boss Graham Potter before accepting the job. He said, "I know the fan base and what they expect in terms of the modern Swansea way that started under Roberto Martinez and continued under Brendan Rodgers and Michael Laudrup. We, as a coaching team, are very much aligned with that. It excites me." Thank you very much for watching that video. Please subscribe if you're new around here. That would be hugely appreciated. Just seems that just let me know if you like the new sort of like layout of the new like days it's on. And coming up, we've got the best championship transfer of this season. That's coming up on Friday. And then next week on Monday, we've got a history of Watford, I'm inclined to say. So see you to whatever you want to tune in. Thank you for now.